There is a really great Warren Buffett quote that I love, and you probably have even seen this online. And Warren Buffett was quoted as saying, "The difference between successful people and really successful people is that the really successful people say no to almost everything." And of course, Warren Buffett, one of the richest people in the world, one of the most successful people in the world. So I really love that quote, and I think it speaks volumes to the importance of actually saying no. Steve Jobs echoed this sentiment as well. And I'm paraphrasing here, but Steve Jobs said that people think that focus means saying yes to a few number of things. But focus also means saying no to the 100 other ideas that are out there. In fact, Steve Jobs said that he was just as proud of the things he said no to as he was of the things that he said yes to. And lastly, I want to share a quote that Vanessa Patrick said from the University of Houston. She's a professor there, and she said, "The ability to communicate no really reflects that you are in the driver's seat of your life. It gives you a sense of empowerment." And that's exactly what we're going to talk about, getting that sense of empowerment by saying no. As I was doing research for putting together this video, doing some of these interviews, I actually came across an HBR article, and just the title alone resonated with me, and I thought it was perfect to kind of convey the point of all these different types of things. And the title was, "We overcommit because we don't want to disappoint, but then we disappoint because we overcommit." And the author of that article for HBR was Diana Kander, so if you get a minute, I highly recommend that you check that out. It was a fantastic piece. So now that we have that kind of introduction, that high-level overview around why saying no is important and what that means, and we have examples of very successful business leaders who have done a good job of saying no, let's dive into actually how to make this happen. So before saying no, the first thing we need to think about is when is actually a good time to say no. One really good time is if you already have a lot on your plate and taking on more work is going to compromise the quality of the work that you do. So that might be a fantastic time to start to say no to other things that come your way. Another good time to say no is when adding more will start to negatively impact the quality of your life. Your health starts to go down, you feel like you can't look after yourself, your heart starts beating fast, you're constantly stressed out, you're getting very unhappy and angry and agitated, you're crying when you get home from work. I saw this firsthand with my mom. And she used to be a computer programmer at a technology company. She since has gone back and became a marriage and family therapist, and this was many years ago. But I remember her coming home from work crying all the time because she was so stressed out. People were just piling more work on her, and she didn't really have that ability, that skill set to say no. And so it started to really negatively impact the quality of her life, to the point where my dad said, "You know what? It's not worth it. Just tell these people to, go away." You know what I really want to say. I don't want to curse on the video, but that's what he said. He said, just tell these people to go away, just quit. Let's go do something else instead. And so now she's a marriage and family therapist, loves her life, loves her career. But again, that's why it's important to say no. You don't want to get to that point where you're starting to crumble, where your body starts to suffer, your soul, you don't want to get to that point where you as an individual are starting to be negatively impacted by your inability to say no. Another good time to say no is if you know you can't deliver on something. Maybe you don't have the skill set, you don't have the qualifications, and it's just a little bit too far out of your comfort level, your skill set, to be able to do effectively. Now, this doesn't mean that you shouldn't take on stretch goals or stretch assignments, that's fine. But sometimes people ask you to do things that are just way out there that you know you're not going to do a good job at. For me, this typically manifests itself when somebody wants me to speak about a topic that I have no background in, that I've never studied, that I've never explored. When that comes my way, I have to say no, because I know if I say yes to that kind of an engagement, really what's going to happen is I'm going to end up doing a poor job. So I do take things that are maybe a little bit outside of my comfort zone, but I'm not going to give a keynote talk on IT security, for example, or on sales and marketing, because that is something that's just beyond my focus area, beyond the things that I choose I want to spend my time on. And so I have to learn to say no, and you too also need to learn to say no when you believe that something is just outside of what you are going to be good at doing. Now, those are some good times to say no, but there are also bad times to say no as well. For example, you don't want to say no just because you don't want to take on a challenge. Now, this doesn't mean that it's, again, not a stretch assignment. I mean, challenges are good, but we need to be realistic with our challenges, right? I mean, if you're in marketing or in sales and somebody puts you in a completely new role and expects you to deliver a high quality level of work, that's not a challenge, that's just setting yourself up for failure. A challenge is doing something that's just outside of your core skill set that you can maybe level up to and do well, but you don't want to take something that's like up here. Now, I play a lot of chess, and so for me, I might play people that are a little bit better than me, but I'm not gonna sit down and play with a grandmaster because, quite honestly, not gonna be fun for either of us. But still, you want to take on challenges, but these are challenges that kind of need to be incremental, right? Don't go crazy with it because you're just going to set yourself up for failure. So don't say no in the face of a challenge, just try to say no in the face of what I like to call an impossibility. Another bad time to say no might be if something is just outside of your job description. So for example, you just get hired to do marketing and somebody says, I know you're in marketing, but maybe you can provide some feedback and advice and ideas with your marketing background for HR or for sales. Don't just say, oh, this is not part of my description, this isn't what I signed up for, right? That's not a good reason to say no, especially if it's kind of on the tangential, the periphery of what it is you're already doing. So it's important to say no, but again, you need to be able to say no in a strategic way. And you might think of some other good times to say no and bad times to say no, but those are the few that I just kind of wanted to throw your way just to get you thinking about this. So here are a couple questions that you can ask yourself to decide if you should say no to something or if you should say yes to something. And again, after you watch this video, feel free to add some of your own questions to the mix as well. But these are questions that I personally go through all the time as opportunities come my way for meetings, for speaking engagements, for projects. I constantly go through this kind of a list. The first question is, do I have the skills and knowledge to be able to do this task or project effectively? If not, is it something that I can learn in a reasonable amount of time to then be able to do a good job? If the answer to that is no, chances are you should say no to that project or task. Another question that you can ask is, will doing this other project or task compromise the other projects or task that I'm working on? Another question you can ask is, will taking on this project or task negatively impact my quality of life? For example, if you're constantly being asked to work late, you're constantly being asked to show up to work early to take meetings, is that going to negatively impact the quality of your life? And another question that you can throw out there is somebody able to assist you with the project or task? Are you able to delegate it? Are you able to get help with it to make sure that it gets completed and that the quality, the level of work is still high? If the answer to all of those questions or some of those questions is no, chances are you should really take a step back and think about if you should say no to that project. Athena and I hope you enjoyed that. If you want more content like that, check out futureofworkpodcast.com. And do me a favor, please review the podcast on Apple Podcasts or whatever your preferred channel is. Thank you very much.